Good morning, everyone. Welcome to series two of Awaken Your Spiritual Neurons Empire. And I hope everyone had a chance to reflect on the two questions that I did yesterday on the introduction. Um, just to remind everyone, the first question was to write down what keeps you awake at night. And the second question was if there is one thing that is currently bothering you or that you're facing a challenge, and that is something that you could actually change or transform, right? That will actually change everything else in your life, what would that be? And those two questions are very important because on the topic today, we're going to cover the first chapter, which is called Connecting the Points. And that's precisely what we're going to start doing in this journey. We're going to start connecting points to try to understand from our past memories why that situation that bothers you or whatever it is that you're passing through right now, uh, what was the cause? What is the origin? What made you be in that situation? Okay, so that is actually the key ingredient for starting connecting the points. Okay, now just to remember you, I'm trying to look at the cameras at the same time. I am actually recording this via Instagram channel and at the same time in YouTube channel, right? So if you don't see me looking at one side of the camera or to the other one, is because I'm looking at that one or I'm looking at my notes anyhow. But just to let you know that, I mean, these recordings are free, they're available. And what I'm actually doing is just sharing my knowledge to help you go through your own personal process of transformation. Okay. Now, going back to our content regarding connecting the points, one of the things that I want to mention is I called, I actually named the first chapter of my book, Connecting Points, because I felt inspired by a sentence. This was a sentence actually doesn't belong to me, but it belongs to a very uh, prominent entrepreneur, and I believe you already know uh, who it is. His name was Steve Jobs, who was the founder of Apple, and he said that in order for you, right, to make things happen and to make things possible, you have to connect the points from your past, right? So you can somehow start making sense as to what's happening in the present time and trust that all those connections will lead you somewhere in which you're going to be able to create a future. Okay. So I think that that is relevant to the fact that when we are actually transforming something in our brain, actually, we're not transforming anything in our brain, we're transforming our mind. The brain is just an organ that, it commands a series of signals, electrical signals, and at the same time, chemical reactions, I mean, to make brain cells communicate one with each other. But everything happens at the level of our minds. Okay, a couple of things also to take into consideration is that, of course, I'm not going to go through the whole details uh, of the chapter because I want you to read the book. I want you to read the stories that I have written in each one of the chapters. But I am going to concentrate for the purpose. specifically of this life on exercises that are going to be, of course, part of the challenge of the 21-day challenge that uh, we are actually executing in these 21 days. And being today the second day, what we're going to start doing, or what I would like to start doing, is I want you to start paying attention to your breathing. And I'm going to explain to you why. Okay. First, I want you to feel and sit as comfortable as possible as you can, and start paying attention to your breathing in a conscious manner, meaning bringing the air through your nose and breathing out, right? Breathing in and breathing out. And if it helps, what you can actually do is you can place your right hand right in your belly, right? And when you're breathing in, I want you to feel that your belly is actually inflating. And when you breathe out, that the belly is actually contracting. Okay. And I want you to keep doing this exercise for not only the time period of this webinar session, but I want you to try to practice this exercise during the whole day. Okay. Breathe in and breathe out. Everything starts with breathing. Okay. Remember, yesterday we talked about processes. Our brain is a process, our mind is a process, conscience is a process, life is a process. And the art of being alive as a human creature, or any other creatures, of course, is on one of the most important elements that we need in order to be alive, which is breathing, right? I usually ask people, how long can you live without food? Now, people will say, 3 days, 2 days, or whatever. If I ask you, how many days are you able to live or survive without water, right? Take a wild guess, right? Maybe one, mostly two, but you're going to be dehydrated. Now, if I ask you, how long would you be able to survive without breathing? Um, I'm going to leave you with that answer for you to figure it out. And you will be amazed what your brain is going to tell you because you already know the answer. Um, One of the things that happens in your brain and in your mind is that you have the answers. You already know the answers to a lot of the things, even though the questions that I asked you yesterday, right? You know deep inside yourself, why are you in a worrying situation right now? You know what actually put you there. um, And that's precisely what I wanted you to experience with your own reflections and your own thinking, but um, in such a way that you can actually come up with those answers. And if you haven't come up with the answer, okay, the very first thing, simple thing to start um, bringing to your memory the thoughts, the feelings towards that situation or that dilemma that you're passing through is, believe it or not, by start breathing. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because our brain is basically, a structure. And that structure is composed of several aspects, right? We're going to talk a little bit further about the components of the brain, but just to give you an idea, everything that your brain is basically water, mineral salts, glucose, right? That's very important. And there is one important factor, which is fatty acids. So your brain is 60% fat, right? And at the same time, it's water. And at the same time, it's sugar. And at the same time, it's minerals. Okay. Now, in order for all those components to work, they need other elements. And one of those elements, which is very important, is oxygen. Okay. So you need to pay attention to your breathing precisely because the more oxygen you bring to your brain, right, the more connections, right, that are or get activated in your brain, and they actually help you connect not only your thoughts, but also your thoughts and your feelings. There is a portion in the book in which I talked about uh, three parts that, or three, let's say, layers of the human brain. Okay, I'm gonna go real quick, and you're going to understand something that is very interesting. You can actually take a look at that in the book, or you can Google it later. Um, there is a very prominent neuroscientist whose name is Antonio Damasio. Okay, he is a Portuguese neuroscientist, but he is a U.S. citizen. He has been uh, living in the U.S. for decades, and he wrote a book that is called The Descartes Error, which I recommend to anyone who is interested on neuroscience to read that book because he explains on the book precisely the relationships between feelings and the intellect, which is the part in which we make decisions and in which we actually judge our mental rational thoughts. And one of the things that he also did in his studies and in his research was to confirm, right, these three layers in the brain, which are basically what? The upper layer, which is, let's say, the one that is close to the bone of the skull, is what is called the neocortex. Okay, the neocortex is what? Is your rational thinking brain. It's where you think, where you organize ideas, where you plan, where you uh, imagine, where you actually make decisions, right? That is the portion of your brain in which you execute actions, in which you plan for the actions, and also, where you uh, manage the expression of yourself through language. There is a second layer, which is called the limbic system, or the emotional or the feeling brain. And this portion is very important because this is in the midbrain where all of our feelings, our emotions are concentrated in the forms of memories. Okay. Dr. Joe Dispenza, who happens to be another one of my favorite authors that I love reading this guy. I mean, and he is amazing. He has been done great job on combining neuroscience with spirituality, and I also suggest that you read it. But he mentioned something that is very interesting, and you are going to understand this in a much deeper way when, of course, you read my book and when you get to to get to do my courses, which I'm in the process of creating, and also my workshops. Uh, when you rely on memories from the past, be it dilemmas, be it traumas, being limiting beliefs or worries, right? What actually really keeps you at night, awake at night, is not the memory of the experience per se that you lived in some point or at some point in the past. What you are actually repeating in your mind is the emotion that is behind that experience, right? And this is very important for everyone to understand, right? We human beings suffer mostly today, not because of the experience that happened in the past, but because of the emotion that got repressed from that experience. And that is what we are always ruminating. That is what we are always worrying about. Okay. There is a reason why I actually told you, right, that it was important for you to answer those two questions. And if you haven't got to the answer yet, I promise you that at some point in time, you're going to get to those answers. But it's important that at this uh, second time or second day that we have, you already have an idea of choosing what exactly is it that you want to work on this 21-day challenge. And I want you to concentrate only on one thing that you would like to change, or one thing that you would like to transform, right? Hopefully, it's something that does no longer serve you and that is going to bother and that is not going to bother you anymore, right? And again, it can be a worried, it can be a situation, it can be a relationship, it can be a trauma, it can be anything that at this moment is preventing you from moving forward, right? So, as we are speaking, right, I want to remind you the first portion of this series in which I ask you to breathe. So, keep breathing. Put your hand in the belly and remember that you are breathing as you're listening to this video, right? I'm talking to you, but at the same time, I always have to remember my mind that I have to breathe, because if I don't breathe, what's happening is that my frontal lobe, where all the executive functions of my brain, which is planning, executing, at the same time remembering what I have to say, they're not going to be possible if I don't bring oxygen to that portion of the brain. And that is exactly one of the reasons why um, we usually have issues, right, on ruminating invasive thoughts or invasive feelings, because we're not breathing, we're not conscious of breathing. So, what is happening is that the energy in our memories that is kind of like condensated and making repetitive electrical signals and activations on chemical reactions is centered on our midbrain, which is our limbic system, right? So, and here's something that you can actually observe. There are a lot of people that they are more emotional, meaning more limbic brain, than rational. There are people that are more rational or more neocortex brain than limbic system or limbic brain. In other words, there are people that are more emotional than rational. There are others that are more rational than emotional. And there are people, right, that they are people who actually act based only on their impulses. those are the people who are mostly operating on the third part of the brain, which is the reptilian brain. The reptilian brain is like the lower portion of the brain, like right on the bottom of the midbrain. Pretty much this session right here, right? The reptilian brain is basically the survival brain. So when you see that people are doing crazy things and they don't know, or they actually know, but they don't measure the consequences of their actions, those are the kind of people that they're pretty much on the reptilian brain. And when Damasio actually explained the three brains, what he was actually trying to explain was the fact that, you see, I mean, there are different kinds of people, but uh, one of the things is that in order for a human being to be able to uh, have a proper activation of neuron cells in which there are connecting uh, points in a, let's say, in a balanced way, right? Feelings, thoughts, right, and impulses, they have to be balanced, right? So, and here's something that I remember from myself. You see, I mean, like usually when I used to be in situations in which I got easily mad or easily annoyed for something, I remember that the first thing that happened to me, and this is something that I became aware later on, um, was the fact that when I got annoyed, the first thing that I stopped doing was breathing. And I want you to start noticing what happens when you get into situations or habits or behaviors. Pay attention if you're breathing or not. And if you're not, remind yourself for a minute to put your hand in your belly and just breathe. Why? Because the minute that you remember that you are breathing, what's going to happen is that the feeling and the emotion that is stored in your midbrain, right, is going to start uh, flowing more to the neocortex portion, in which activate other series of neurons or brain cells that are going to help you rationalize that emotion and that feeling in such a way that you can start understanding why are you feeling the way you are feeling. Okay, I don't know if you remember yesterday I told you this series or the project itself of Awaken Your Neurons Empire is all based on experiencing feelings, right? And that means bringing the feelings, of course, from memories that have been stored for a long time in the past. Because when you recover and you start understanding that feelings that created the limiting beliefs or that created those ruminating and invasive thoughts, uh, you're going to start having more flexibility to see what are the thoughts, what are the feelings, what are the memories that you don't want to activate anymore on your brain, that you want to leave them aside and replace them with something else. Okay, that is the key ingredient, right, for starting any transformational process in your brain. And notice that what I'm doing here so far is I'm giving you uh, some sort of information just to help you, right, get into your own memories, your own experience, but at the same time, gather the information that I'm giving you in such a way that you can put it in practice and see if it works for you, right? I mean, it works for me, and it worked for a lot of people that I have talked to, even clients and persons who I have actually coached and taught on the past, right? So just try it. Breathe, breathe. I don't know if and I was telling you that when I used to get mad and I used to forget about breathing. I remember that when I was in situations, and even though still today, sometimes I have the same uh, the same experience, but today is a little bit different because I'm more conscious. Is the fact that people used to tell me, Johan, come on, stop. I mean, breathe, right? Breathe. And I was like, no, I don't want to breathe. I don't want to breathe. Don't tell me to breathe. And what was happening actually is that I was in my midbrain or in my limbic brain acting and behaving only under the illogical emotion. And the reason why I was operating on my emotional brain was because all of the energy, and when I'm talking about energy, is all of the connection of brain cells of my memories are have been concentrated, or they were concentrated on all of the repressed emotions that I had been carrying since I was a kid, since I was let's say a youngster who had faced many stressful situations. And those memories, those emotions that got repressed over there in the past, you see, they somehow they want to be liberated. They want to be set up free, right? So every time that there is a situation, or every time that is something in the present moment that is happening that triggers the memories from the past, what's going to happen is that you are going to react, right, exactly as those emotions that are stored, uh, because somehow your psyche is identifying, right, what with what is happening in the present moment. uh, Hopefully you will be able to understand this on a better way in future um, chapters. But that's pretty much what happens in your brain, and this is one of the reasons why at the beginning, right, I say connecting the points. It's important for you to understand that when we are talking about connecting your memories from the past, basically what we want to achieve with this is bring to consciousness everything that has happened in the past, so you can start making a rational thought in your neocortex, right, as to why whatever happened in the past, right, brought you to experience the situations that you're experiencing in the present moment. Okay, and this is very important, because once those emotions are alive, and you probably are going to say, well, I don't want to feel the same emotions from the past. Okay, well, it's a choice that you have. But one of the things that you have to know is that the more those emotions actually get repressed or remain repressed in your um, in the storage of your brain, the more active they're going to get. Why? Because they are eager to be liberated. They have been repressed. They have been in the jail of your own mind. You have been a slave, and you haven't even noticed that you have been a slave of your own mind, of your own emotions, that you have not liberated, that you have not set up free, right? So hopefully this will give you an understanding uh, as to why it is important for you to pay attention to the one thing that is bothering you today that you want to work, right? So you can start working around that situation in order to remember what were the causes for you to be in that situation. Okay, so I explained to you the three brains, right? The neocortex, the limbic brain and the reptilian brain. Reptilian brain being the survival mode. So when people act only in survival, like people, for instance, that have serious personality disorders, right? Like sociopaths, psychopaths, um, not necessarily those, but people who are somehow in trouble with the law, right? Most of those people are people that they don't actually measure the consequences, right? They don't know, um, or actually they are conscious, but they don't care about the consequences because they are not actually making in the brain the connections, the necessarily connections to feel, and at the same time to rationalize those consequences in the intellect. One of the portions of the neocortex actually is precisely the judgment that is made between uh, actions, decisions, ideas, thoughts, plans, right? Images, everything that happens in your brain, right? There is a portion of the neocortex which is in charge of judging whether the information or the images that are in your brain will be expressed or not, right? So I'm hoping that all this is, of course, it's basic neuroscience, is basic, and I'm trying to explain it as simple as possible. I promise you that when I get to do a workshop or a course, I mean, you will have slides and stuff like that, but this will give you an idea as to um, how your brain actually works, and how the situations that you are living in the present moment are being the result of things that are already stored in your mind, or the memories that are stored in your mind. Okay. One of the things, and remember, this is very important. Remember to breathe. So, what I want you to do is during the day, I want you to try to connect your feelings and your thoughts with the breathing. And the easiest way, remember, just put your hand in your belly and breathe. And every time that you remember that you have to breathe, try to breathe, but while you're breathing, right, pay attention to what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and keep breathing. And I want you to write in a piece of paper. By the way, if it helps, get a notebook for this 21-day challenge and write the exercises that I'm telling you in such a way that it's easier for you to go back to your notes and connect one session with the other one. Okay. But in this one, at the end of the day, today, I want you to write everything that you experience, right? From breathing, feeling, and thinking simultaneously. And write whatever experience you find interesting. So that's going to be your second challenge for the second day. And then tomorrow, we are going to talk about visualization and mentalization. And we're going to bring some other sources of information to help you gain more consciousness of what's happening in your brain and how your brain has been programmed. So for now, I thank you so much for today's series. Very short, but very straight and to the point. Get to your breathing, and I'll see you on the next webinar series. Have a blessed day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are.